What's up everyone, this is Ryan from RD Arts, and not only do I do art and play a little bit of music, I am a big gamer. I'm also a big Forza Motorsport fan, and today we are going to go over how to come up with a simple bass tune for a 1981 Ford Fiesta. And so let's go ahead and take it around the track, level it up, and see what we can do with it. Alright guys, so what we want to do first is we're going to go ahead and go to our upgrade screen and our performance screen, and we are going to buy everything that is adjustable. So I like to go ahead and get the race brakes, the race anti-roll bars, front and back, and the race springs. Be careful not to get the drift ones. Then I scroll over, and because shift time is such a big deal in this game, I add the race transmission now, because that is a sequential gearbox now. And then of course I always add the race differential no matter what. And that'll do that, so let's go ahead and get it out on the track, and we'll go from there. Okay guys, before we start anything, you should have your car leveled up to at least 15. That ensures all the adjustable items are unlocked and that you can afford to get all the adjustable items. So what I like to do is go ahead and start off with setting up a test drive. So down in the corner of your screen there, you see it says test drive, and I like to go to the Indianapolis GP track. There's a lot of flat turns there, and the straight is one of the fastest in the game, one of the longer ones in the game as well, and aside from Le Mans of course. So let's go ahead and get down there and see what we can do with this car. Okay guys, so you can get your pen and paper and your calculator ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to car. I'm going to go to tune car. And the information on the right hand side we're going to toggle over, and this is what we need. So we're going to need your weight, and then you need to write down the distribution. So look at the distribution, it says 60-40. You want to say that in percentages, so 60%, 40%. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay guys, so what I generally like to do first is I like to go to the alignment screen and set everything to whole numbers or zeros. So if you take a quick look here, the front and the rear, I have, it said 9 at first, -9 in the front and 0 in the back. So what we're going to set it to is -1 in the front, 0 in the back, and zeros for the toe, and 5.0 for the caster. I like to start out with 5.0 at the caster and work my way backwards. Okay, so springs are kind of the more complicated part of this whole thing, but it can only take a few minutes to figure out what numbers to start with, and then you can go from there. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and come up with a support percentage, which is basically the amount of weight that your springs are going to manipulate. So on a lighter car like this, I like to run 50%. The higher the percentage, 1 through 100, the stiffer the springs. The lower the number, the softer the springs. So on lighter cars, I like to run a stiffer setup. So we're going to run 50%. So what 50% actually means is we are going to play with 50% of the weight of the car. That's how much the springs are going to handle. So to come up with that equation, you're going to take your support percentage, which is 50, and what you're going to do is you're going to multiply it by the weight of the car, which with the upgrades we have comes out to 1,832. So you're going to multiply 1832 times 50%, and that comes out to your support percentage. Now if you take your support percentage and you multiply that by your front bias, which is 60%, you will get your front springs, which comes out to 549. Now if you take that support percentage again and subtract 549 from it, you will get 367. Okay, so for ride height, basically what you want is you want the car to be as low as possible without bottoming out, and there's a page on the telemetry screen that we will go over to figure that out. But basically what I like to do is I like to lower the car as far as possible and then just straighten it out. So we'll take some rear out, put some front end up, and make this nice and even, and we'll go from there. And next on the list is our damping, and this is super easy to do. We know our distribution percentages, so all we need to do is know how much and how little we can go on the bump stiffness. So if you take a look, our bump is set to 13 in the front, which is our highest, and 1 in the back, which is our lowest. That's just to tell you what the numbers are. I generally like to run a very tight spring setup when it comes to my damping. So here's the equation for that. What you do is you take 13, which is the highest that the bump will go, and you're going to multiply that by your front bias, which is 60%. And what that comes out to is 7.8. Now, for your front rebound, you're going to take that number and you're going to add 33% to it, which comes out to 10.3. Now 33%, you ask. Now I've done some research, and a lot of people just say, from a lot of different Reddit accounts and things, say that you want at least 33% of your rebound should be higher than your bump stiffness. So that's basically what it is. You put your bump stiffness, and then you take your bump stiffness and plus 33%, and that's going to give you your rebound. Now same with the back. You're going to take 13 and you're going to multiply it by 40%, which is your rear bias. That's going to give you 5.2. And then you're going to add 33%, which gives you 6.9. And that's how I come up with my base damping setups. Now when it comes to suspension geometry, the roll center height offset for front and rear, I usually just keep at 0. I haven't figured out what they really feel like with extremes, so I just leave them at 0. If anyone has any tunes where they've messed with that particular setup, please send them over in the comments, and I'd love to see what that setting actually does. Now for anti-dive and anti-squat, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's when you hit the brakes coming into a corner, how much of the car dives, which is like going forward. So the higher the percentage, the stiffer the springs, the lower the softer. And same with acceleration on anti-squat. Basically, it's how stiff the rear springs are on acceleration. So the higher the percentage, the stiffer the springs, the lower the percentage, the lower the springs, or the softer the springs. Okay guys, so the next part on our list is the differential. So what we're going to do is going to scroll on over to that. And because this is a front wheel drive vehicle, this is going to look a little different than a rear wheel drive vehicle. On front wheel drive vehicles, you definitely want the wheels to be a little locked up on acceleration, but you don't want them so locked up that when you jump on the gas mid-turn that the car kind of straightens itself out. So I generally like to run around 35% on front wheel drive vehicles on acceleration, and I kind of start around 25% on vehicles that are rear wheel drive on acceleration. So we're going to go ahead and set that. Now for the decel, basically on front wheel drive vehicles you want this to be wide open. On rear wheel drive vehicles I will generally set that to about 15%, so there is a little bit of braking in the corner and it helps me kind of get into corner entry. So acceleration basically works like a dragster. The higher the number, the more straight line speed. The lower the number, the more open you are in your cornering. Same with decel. The higher the number, when you take your foot off the gas, the more locked up your wheels are going to be. The lower the number, the more open they are going to be in a corner. Okay, so now that we got our numbers set and everything, let's go ahead and take this thing out on the track. So let's back out of everything and let's go ahead and hit start race. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this thing around, and basically what we're going to do first is we're going to set up our gearing. As you see, I'm already hitting into 6th gear just to see where I'm at by the end of this straight. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to make it a shorter gear to kind of get to the end of 6th gear faster. So we're going to add acceleration to our gearing. I usually just mess with the final drive. I don't normally mess with the individual gears unless I absolutely have to. I just like to mess with the final drive, and I have no problems with this at all. So this is all adjusted by feel. So generally I like to start in the 4s. If I notice that I need acceleration and it's pretty far down, I like to start in the 4 department. Okay, let's get this thing back out on the track here, and we are still a little bit off on the gearing. I can see, 3rd gear is kind of where I want to be in that situation, but sorry for the little bit of lag that might be going on here. Okay, as we come up around the back side of this track now, we're going to go ahead and do this again. We're going to gun it coming out of here, and we're just going to set our final gear, which would be 6th gear, to a little bit less than the red line at the breaking point of the straightaway here. So I'm going to pause it here, add a little more acceleration. And that looks good. I like where that's at right there. I think we'll stick with that for right now. Okay, and the next thing that I like to do is bring the car in, let the wheels reset, and go ahead and go to car, tune car, and we are going to set the tire pressure. Now I generally like to just start at 32 and 32. That's optimum pressure in real life. That's generally what optimum pressure is in Forza as well. And again, I'm just going to take a look through here, make sure everything is set to zeros, apply, and we're going to take this thing out on the test track. Okay, so next up, we're going to go ahead and hit the telemetry page, which is down on the D-pad, and then just scroll over to tires miscellaneous page, and we're going to take a look at the camber and the PSI, which is the pressure of the tire. We're going to tune those simultaneously. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to set the camber, and that's going to heat the tires because more tires are going to be touching the ground. So we're just going to tune those back and forth. Okay, as we pull up to this first corner here, I want you to take a look at the rear outside corner camber. As you can tell, it is quite positive. We want that to be negative at all times. We don't want it to be as close to 0 as possible. I mean, you can try, but you just want it to be negative at all times. Now what you want to do is you want to set your rear camber, and then you set your front camber to be a little bit more than your rear camber. You always want more front camber than you do rear. So let's go ahead and take a look. Let's set that camber just a little bit. Now I was seeing some 1.3s, some 1.2s, so I think we're just going to go in that direction. And then we're just going to set the front camber to be a little bit higher. So I think we're just going to go with 1.5. And we're just going to see what that brings us. Okay, so now we're going to head into this next set of corners. This is why I like this track so much. It's because there's like 3 different sections. You can get a lot of tuning done on this track. But we're coming up here to the next set of corners, and I just want to take a look at the outside rear tires. I'm still seeing a little bit of positive camber. Not a lot, but a little bit. Enough that I think I'm going to go in and change this up just a little bit. So pause this, go down to tune car, and yeah, we're going to add a little bit more to the front. We're going to go 1715. And we're going to add a little bit of caster, and that's going to tighten up the car just a little bit. Alright, so since I feel pretty good about this where it's at, we're going to fast forward to the other side of the track here. I'm going to go on that back straight, and we're just going to warm up the tires. Well, we want them to be at 32 psi, basically through corners, but if you can keep it through the straights through the whole track, that's great. So as we go through this corner, take a look at the outside wheels, and that's what we're going to go off of. And then take a look at the outside wheels on this one. And again, the outside wheels. You notice we are going to have to make a couple of adjustments. Now the reason why this changed is because we messed with the camber, and there's more tire touching the ground than there was to start with. Now I've generally noticed that putting tire pressures together, I find that they don't spread too far away from each other. So say like that is, they're not too far away from each other in number wise. Let's go ahead and take this around the track. Okay, so as you can see, I think I got these wheels pretty well dialed in. So let's go ahead and work on the final pieces and get this thing ready to go for the road. Okay, and the final adjustable on our list is the braking system. So let's go to our tune car, go over to our brakes. Now, I generally like to set my braking pressure to 120. That's completely up to you. Everybody's different. Now, when it comes to brake balance, there's a little bit of a different way to do this. Now, basically what I like to do is I like to have all 4 wheels at a locking distance or at a locking point, not necessarily locking up, but slowing down all at the same time. I don't like my wheels to lock up in the front or in the rear. So what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and set our brake balance to the rear a little bit, and then we're going to run down a straight and test it all out. Now the way to test this, at least my theory and my way of doing this, is while you're driving down a straight, you just tilt the camera to the side of the car, and when you brake, you watch your wheels, and you set the percentage to where you want the wheels to be locking up. Now, as you see there, I actually kind of like where it's at. So what I like to do is I like to set my percentage, my brake balance, and then I like to move it up a tick just a little bit to the front, maybe 1 or 2%, so it does have that dive a little bit, so you can get that extra bite in the corners. Well, that's it, everybody. That's how I get my bass tunes, and I generally don't have to adjust them much more than that. If you have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments, and I will definitely get back to you. Let's go ahead and take an overview of what is going on here. So we're going to take the practice lap, and we're going to scroll through our telemetry screens, and we're going to make sure we're not bottoming out, which we're not, and that's kind of where you want your springs to be set. Front being in the middle, the back kind of just over the middle on your straights, and not moving too much more in the corners. And then we're just going to take a look at our camber. Our PSIs are good. Camber is negative all the way around through this cornering here. Looks good. Not too much jumpingness. And I think we got ourselves a pretty good car here, folks. That's a bass tune for you. Now, this isn't an end-all be-all, but this is definitely a good starting point. If you have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments. My name is Ryan. I'm from RD Arts, and me and Mufasa. We will see you guys later.